Hello guys, welcome back to another podcast of Limits. Let's meet in the staff room. It is good if you're listening to us right now, and it's so awesome to have you on our podcast channel. We hope you've actually engaged some of the materials and the content that we've been putting out there on our socials. So today, as you know, at Limits, we tend to discuss education and its intersection with society. What's on today's lesson plan? Nothing other than parental engagement.
Ooh,
Yeah.
it's a big one.
I mean,
One of my
parental
favourites.
engagement. Like,
Yeah.
you know what? When obviously, I came up with this idea. And rightly so, as Zan said in previous podcasts, when I started my NQT, so a newly qualified teacher, my NQT year, I really wanted to document my journey. And I found that, in my placement year, my PGC year, the kind of teacher I am really kind of came to the forefront. And so I'm so fortunate to have worked in a school in my NQT year that allowed me to further develop my style of teaching. I realized that my style of teaching is one that is very much pastoral. So I value relationships with the kids. I value relationships with their parents. And so I was literally just doing me, right? And so in doing myself, a lot of the kids started to go home and tell their parents, like, yeah, there's this, this cool, I'm not even gassing myself. They actually said, there's this school teacher, his name is Mr. Josephs, and he's just different. And so this progressed throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
And I will find that my classroom my doors were always open to students. They could always come in. Even those who I don't teach, they would look in and they'll be like, oh, I was like, do you want to come in? Like, yeah. So then they'll go back and then, they'll tell their parents. And so what I found was that when you came to parents' evening, and it was year 7 parents' evening, and one of my form tutees, who I also teach in year 7, his mom came up to me and she waited in lines, because it was so busy, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then year 7s, their parents
Yeah.
are keen, so
Yeah.
the line was long. And so she waited and stuff like that. And then my eyes would be like crossing. And I was just like, this lady's probably like staring at me. I was just like, oh, hi, I'm so sorry for keeping you waiting. And she came down, it was her turn. And then I was just like, hi, my name is Mr. Josephs. I reached out my hands to shake. She was like, no, a handshake is not enough. And I was like, what do you mean a handshake's not enough?
What do you want?
What do you
want from me?
They're just like, yeah, like, can I get a hug? And I was just like, so I looked around, just look at other teachers and see that is okay. And then I was like, sure thing. So I gave her a hug, and then she really embraced me. And then she whispered in my ear and she said, thank you so much for all that you've done for my kid. And I was just like, don't worry, like, it's fine, I really care about him, and I care about the majority. Sorry, I care about all my students. I was going to say the majority. I care about all of my students, but my form, he was also part of my form, so I had a deep relationship with him. And so we spoke, we said how, and I encouraged her, and I said that you have done such an amazing job raising this young man. The fact that he represents you well in this school is a testament of your parent, your parenting. Yeah. And so she went now to another, teacher for parents, and she was expecting the same thing, the same gas. And she basically, the teacher was like, yeah, he was just saying the opposite of everything that I've said. He was just like, yeah, I find it very difficult sometimes with your kid, and he is, I don't know where he's at, And so sometimes I find he can be a bit rude or anything like that, like he's not engaging. And then this was the statement that she said, which really just flabbergasted me. And she actually came back.
The teacher or
the mom. She came back and she told me, she was like, yeah, I told the teacher that, if there's anything in the school, rather than, messaging me, you still can message me, but go to Mr. Josephs as his form teacher. Like, I trust him with him. So you don't if you find it difficulty coming to me or getting in contact with me, I give you permission to go to Mr. Joseph. So it's like instantly she was making it known to the fact that you are also my son's co-parent, in your role as being his teacher and his form tutor. And I was really...
How did you feel?
I mean, I'm only 25, you know?
I didn't sign up for this. I'm enjoying myself. But
Listen, live my best life.
I was like... And I think, you've seen a lot of the LinkedIn posts that I've posted on LinkedIn. I don't know why I repeated that, but in all that I was doing, I wasn't doing it for show. Like I was generally just doing it. Nobody told me to do it, and it's just something that I truly just wanted to do. So when she said that and she gave me the responsibility, or she's like, Mr. Joseph, you don't even listen, whatever we need to do, like you can do, I trust you and stuff like that. It doesn't even come to myself. And funny enough, like I have a great relationship with that mom. So it brought on this whole topic of parental engagement. Because it's clear to say that some parents are involved in their parents' in their students' lives, their kids' life, and some are not, and for various reasons. So I think before I kind of dive into the topic, because it's a really important topic when we think about it, because as teachers and as educators, they're not your kids. You're almost looking after somebody else's kids. So it's just logical for 100%. You to kind of like, you think it's logical for you to have a relationship with the biological parents, the kids, the carers, let's say that per se. So what do you think when I say parental engagement? What do you think I mean by that?
Do you know?
Anyone?
I think the first thing that really comes to mind actually is my mind is kind of cast back to my educational journey, and I'm looking at parental engagement in context of my educational journey. And
were your parents did your parents? Okay, for example, can you look back and say that your mom or your parent know what you took for GCSE?
My mom thinks I'm a teacher.
Wait, what? Wait, what do you mean? I'm so confused.
Hold on.
Don't let me fall off this chair. Don't let me fall off this chair.
Wait a minute. What do you mean?
Just say that. Yeah, that's kind of summarizes it. No, I think in all fairness, there was effort to be engaged how best they knew how, but in what the model of education looks like and what I needed, and actually having a level of maybe investment, a level of knowledge of what I'm doing, and probably how to relate to that and maybe inform that school decision outside in the home. No. Okay. No.
I'll say I'm the opposite. I would say parental engagement to me is when a parent is intentionally involved in their child's life in terms of education. So they know how the child is getting on at school. They're asking the child, how was your day? They're finding out what their child is finding difficult, what they're finding okay, or if there's anything they can support them with. And they're intentional about building a relationship with their teacher, so they're able to bounce back off each other, like, oh hey, Prince, is finding it hard at home, just let me know if there's anything that he's not doing in school. And in terms of my parents were very much involved in my education. They knew what I took for GCSEs. I sat down with them and we went through it, like, okay, Dad, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. He would ask me, why are you choosing that subject? He would then influence me a little bit, because African parents, they want a doctor, lawyer, but they always knew I had a heart for children, so they're very much free to allow me to grow to become that teacher. I would say my parents were engaged because they would always ask my teachers, both primary and secondary, how is my daughter getting on? Is there anything she's finding hard? And then, they were also engaged in my home school life. So have you done your homework? Not just, yes, Mum, I've done my homework. They would look and check, if my homework's correct. So I would say I'm very much, that's what I would say.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
yeah.
my parents were involved, more so to the extent of behaviour management. I wouldn't necessarily say so. It was a mixture of both, but heavily on the behaviour management side. So much so, teachers had my mum's personal mobile number. So it was like she gave them permission to call her if we misbehaved. Like they had outright to say, I don't like what your daughter's doing. And it was more so, to be fair, sorry, bro, I'm not going to put your name out here, but sorry, bro. But it was more so to do with my younger brother. So there was a particular teacher, I think it was his maths teacher or something. And I think it was because they were both Nigerian as well. So he would call every other day. There was a call. He hasn't done this. He's not doing this. He did this. He did this. He did. And I just thought,
wow.
Are you a teacher? Are you and my mum like besties? Like, what's going on here? Like, what is happening? Yeah. So it was more on the behaviour management side that my parents were involved, but it was still good because at any point they could now ask the questions that they needed to ask in terms of my academics. So they were still involved in terms of what I did at home and my academics, but when it came to homework, if I said I've done it, then I've done it. So
basically.
Even though I hadn't done it, and then it would just be a shock to them when the teacher calls and says, yeah, she hasn't been doing homework for like the past 6 weeks, and they'll be looking at me like, oh, really? But you've been telling me that homework is being done. So it was different, but I'm fully, of the train of thought that parents should be just as involved in their children's education as the teachers that are teaching them. It should be the word that you use, rightly used, it should be sort of a co-laboring situation. It should be a collaboration of parents and teachers in order to get the best out of your child. 100%. It shouldn't just rely on me as a teacher. Yeah. And I don't think it should just rely on you as a parent, because there's things that teachers will be able to navigate your child through. That's why they're in school. Otherwise, if you could do it all by yourself, by all means, keep them at home and homeschool them.
Yeah. So. I love that definition. I'm going to camp right there for a second because, the American Psychological Association, when they gave this definition of what parental engagement is, and obviously in the school setting is defined as parents and school staff working together to support and improve learning, development, and the health of a child. So even though I do agree with what, the definition that you gave, I would have to disagree with the idea that when the communication between parents and teachers are only from a behavioral perspective, it's kind of concerning because the relationship should actually allow a fully development of the child's learning and also their health. So parental engagement is a shared responsibility in which schools are committed to reaching out to engage parents in a meaningful way, and parents are committed to actively support their child's learning and development. And I find that this definition is actually so beautiful in the fact that at the center and at the core of it is the child. We want the best for the child. Yeah. You can look after the child and you can gauge the child from this perspective. I'm going to work with you and actually, attack it, from another perspective. And that's why, funny enough, when I was first given the side job as a form tutor, one of the first thing I ever did was that I wrote a letter to each one of my students' parents, and I said to them, you know your child. I don't know your child, but I want to get to know your child. So I could ask your child, tell me something about them, but they'll say menial things. I want you to tell me about your child. I want to give you the space to tell me about your child, and also give you the space how you want me to interact with your child. And one of them said that, Mr. Josephs, the fact that you've even sent this letter, and this started off this communication just shows that you're already the right person for this job and for my son. And I was just like, I thought people do this,
I hope y'all are taking notes because
in my NPT year, I was just trying to survive. You said that whole letter. Listen, the thought of calling a parent in my NQT year, it made me tremble because I was thinking, I'm not trying to have that kind of experience where you now begin to tell me that I should be doing this and I should be doing that, and you didn't do this and you did. I didn't want it. I was like, no, I don't want it. So the fact that you even sent out that letter yeah, that's different. Even for me, I wasn't doing that until like my second or third year of teaching, where I was actively engaging with parents like that, because genuinely in my NQT year, I was literally trying to survive. I was just trying to get through that year and just, So the fact that that was something that you had in your head to do already, it's a different level.
I mean, the wealth of information that I gained just from that email, or even that letter, some of them even wrote it back, and I told the kids, do not open it. It's not for you, all right? Take it to your parents.
Yeah.
And I titled it Parental Homework. And so the kids were like, I have maths homework as well. You have homework as well. So it was a real like bonding experience and stuff. And some of the emails I was receiving, it was just absolutely amazing. Right. So, there was a study that was conducted by the University of Missouri. And they were focusing on this whole idea of improving the relationships between teachers and parents and teachers and students. And one thing they found is that, children whose parents were identified by teachers as more positively involved had higher levels of pro-social behaviors and more academic success.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I asked each and every one of you guys, what was your parental engagement like, from your perspective? When I reflect on myself, I was not, like, my parents were not engaged. I live here. I was born in Jamaica, came to UK when I was 7. I'm one of 7 siblings, so it's like my dad, love the guy, love him. And we are going to touch upon this, the idea that sometimes you want to give your attention and you want to be involved, but because of other socio-economical issues, you cannot actually invest that much time. And so my dad, he was never really engaged in my in my education. I literally remember choosing my GCSEs for myself and informing my dad. And that's kind of an interesting perspective, because as long as my dad didn't get phone calls home saying that I wasn't a bad student, I wasn't a bad student at all, he thought everything was great. Like, he was like, go son, you're doing me proud and stuff like that. But I think already from the discussion, we understand that it needs to go further than behavioral management. It needs to go further than I'm going to call your parent, or, parents just receiving phone calls and so on and so forth. So if I was to ask you, right, what percentage, there's a study that was conducted by the Department of Education and Skills. And what they did was that they called, they did telephone interviews of different parents, and it had over 2,000 participants, right? And so they just called home. And of that, if I was to ask you, what percentage, or before I even go further, like, this is already just getting me a bit triggered, because I'm just like, if I was to ask on a ratio of 100%, right, 50-50 or so on, so what percentage do you think it is in terms of the child, and whose responsibility of the child's education is it?
If you go to parents and teachers?
Yeah. Who, like, what, if you had to divide blame, or not even blame, responsibility when it comes to a child's education, how would you do it?
50-50.
I think that would be a logical answer.
Yeah.
Ideally.
But
I mean, it's not always possible.
If I thought span and worked, I would say the logical would be 50-50. But practically, when we consider, as you said, the hours the child spends in a school, it can't practically be 50-50. I would venture to say the furthest would be 70-30 in regards to education at school. Education outside of that, the parents have that of responsibility, but the schooling, the academia, that kind of attainment aspect, I would say 70 teacher, just for the mere fact that they function in that arena for the purpose of school.
Can I say something?
Let's go.
I mean, we know that we have 30 children. Well, in primary school, we've got 30 children in our class.
I'm so happy you said that. I'm so happy you actually brought this up.
It's very impossible to impact every single child in that class, to the point where a parent that I know that I've got a good relationship with, she said to me that her mum was a teacher and a head teacher, and she said if she as a parent doesn't do work with her daughter at home, her child won't really succeed as much as she wants her child to succeed. Because in a class, you're moving from a maths lesson, 10-minute teach, half an hour lesson, maybe 10-minute plenary, and then you're moving on to the next session. And it's like, children can easily slip under the rug. And in this coronavirus, having had 11 children in my class, I was really able to actually know every single child.
So
and those are the same children in my 30 pupils.
Yeah. So let me bring it back. so a question is the question, but with that then, which I completely agree with. If let's say the structural makeup of school changed, so as you rightly said, in the COVID period, you had less students present in the classroom, and you were able to maybe function better, be more efficient, and maybe reach the students better.
100%, yeah.
So example, and this is why I said that point, maybe 70-30 at the extremities. If the structural makeup of school changed and naturally the classroom size changed, I would still probably say that, because I think just for that mere purpose, because I think the role of a teacher is the role of a teacher.
Yeah.
And there's so many complexities there.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, the classroom size should be smaller to be able to give ability of teachers to, probably do their job a lot better and a lot easier. But I still do probably think that responsibility of schooling, of academia, would lie majorly on the teacher. And I guess there is then coming that question of now what structural changes can be made to help the teacher to facilitate that learning within the school arena better. Yeah, that's what I think I would say.
I agree. I definitely agree. Like 70-30 when you're thinking about it practically.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I was
Mamus, what do you think?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Tell us, girl.
In the ideal world, it would be 50-50, but you then have to think of there's 24 hours in a day. 6 to 8 of those a child spends in school. 6 to 8 of them a child would spend at home. 6 to 8 of them, 8 to 10 of it, the child is asleep. So it should be 50-50 because there is an even amount of time that they're at home. There's an even amount of time that they're in school. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Because you have parents that have different types of jobs.
Yeah.
Meaning that they're not in home for 8 hours. They're not at home for those 6 hours. They probably spend most of their time with their children over the weekend when they're not in school, because that's the only time that there is that's left. And so if your child has been in school Monday through to Friday learning maths, Spanish, geography, resistant materials. It's not even called resistant materials. Jesus, you're showing your age. It's not even called resistant materials.
I have no idea.
Don't worry.
Science.
Fine.
Resistant bands in class.
All of that stuff. But yeah, so you learn all of that in the week. A parent is not going to be thinking, okay, I'm going to extend what it is that they're doing in school at home. They're not going to be thinking that Monday to Friday. They want their child to rest. Like, genuinely, they want their child to rest on the weekend. So unfortunately, as much as we would like it to be 50-50, I probably would agree with Zion that majority, it would probably lean more towards a 60-70 responsibility of teacher, and then the rest is parents. And I guess it's because of how, like you said, school is structured, because of how schooling is. I had one of the schools that I worked in, one PE lesson, boys PE lesson, 34 students. Me, one teacher.
That should be illegal.
34 15-year-olds to come and teach them.
PE as well.
Not me.
Yeah.
Energy high.
I said what I said. It's PE, I have to come and teach them. That's 34 students. You now want me to enable at least 10% of them. 10% of them are probably really great. I don't even need to be teaching them anything, because as far as they're concerned, they can kickball. They can do it. I'm doing advanced stuff with them. Then you've got about 25% of that group who have never kicked a ball in their life.
Wow.
But I still have to show some form of progress with that 25%. And then the rest of them are somewhere in the middle, and I still have to show progress. But I have to do that for 34 students in 45 minutes. Hello. I'm not Superwoman. I do not have WW on my chest. I'm not Wonder Woman. How are you expecting me to do that with what it is that you're giving me? I'm so sorry. Unfortunately, there will be some that may not get it in that lesson. They may get it the next time, or even the next half term, even the next term. They will get it at some point in the academic year. But if you're asking me to do that in that one particular lesson, you've put an expectation on my head that unfortunately I cannot reach. And I can't, not because I don't want to, but it's actually not feasible. It is highly unfeasible. So I think it's unfortunately the responsibility is an unfair split that is more towards teachers than it is parents. And because of the complexities, working class, middle class, upper class, it's...
You see, now you're getting into that. I'm going to come back to that one. But just to kind of just like, summate that whole, what percentage of responsibility should it go? 58%, of the parents believe that they had at least equal responsibility, which is actually, I was really surprised at that, but I was also encouraged to know that, 58% actually, that's nearly 60% that believe that it's a dual responsibility. What shocked me though, because I didn't think this actually, this happened, but 2% believe that the sole responsibility belonged to the school.
It's fine, homeschool them.
Excuse me.
No, that's fine, homeschool them.
2% of parents.
School them at home.
2% of parents believe that the sole responsibility when it comes to a child's education is or belongs only to the school.
See, okay, so my thing then is, what do they think education is? That's then the question that I would now ask. It's that particular group of parents. What is it that you think education is? If you believe that education is the acquiring of knowledge, then heck yeah, it's down to the teachers for schooling. If it's just about knowledge, then yes. But if we're talking about education in terms of holistically, so their well-being, educating
bringing it
the
back
whole
to the
child,
American psychological
the development of the whole child, then it cannot be the sole responsibility of what do I look like, please? It can't be. It wouldn't work. I don't see how that would be possible. That I am now responsible. You not being funny. You gave birth, but I now become responsible for everything that child is going to.
You gave birth. I'm
saying. But I now become responsible for everything that child is going to be. So what do you do? I'm not sorry, but what is it that you do as a parent? What are you doing? Because for me, I'm just thinking, what's your role? Are you? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's just Misha, because I know it makes sense. You gave birth. I didn't. It wasn't. I
wasn't in the process. I wasn't there.
I didn't.
So okay. So you mentioned something before, saying that obviously when it comes to like social classes, there's certain jobs that parents have that it doesn't allow them to actually be as involved. And within the same study, when it came to like barriers to further engagement or further involvement in their child's education, 54% said that what they consider to be their top barrier was actually work commitments, and then followed closely by lack of time. And this is interesting enough because I can very much relate to this one, but demands of other children and and childcare difficulties. And so it's like what do you kind of do when your environment doesn't allow your intention? How can you navigate that? So it's like, okay, as a parent, I want to be involved in my child's education. However, my job demands me, that or requires of me, I can't be so involved because I do night shifts. Right? So when my kids come home, before I start work at probably 7 p.m, I sit down, give dinner and stuff. I remember when I was in primary school, my dad, when he first came to this country and so on and so forth, like he had a cleaning job and he would do one during the day when he was at school. And then he'll come and pick us up, and then he'll take all of us to his second job where he'll work a few hours, and then we'll go home around 8, 9 p.m. And it's like when we have dinner and so on and so forth, and whilst he was cleaning and working and so on and so forth, it was myself and my brother that was just sitting down in the, the business lobby doing our homework. Well, my dad couldn't be involved, So it's like, if we understand that perspective, therefore, should teachers now have a level of empathy, or should the school, have a level of empathy towards the parents' conditions?
Yes.
100%.
I don't think it wouldn't work otherwise if you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds it is unfortunate, but
Yeah.
I think I kind of just with how a school is, it essentially it imitates the system of a society. This is just how school is. So the fact that in Britain we have the NHS, we have job seekers and that. So we have welfare. Let me just put it that way. We have public welfare. It's a similar system that would now be incorporated into school. This is why you have free school meals. This is why you have things such as pupil premium. This is why you have these sort of things, because they directly imitate what's taking place in society. And in saying that, I think it would be wrong for us as teachers and educators to not empathize, because it's not their fault. If we're asking them to be able to provide, if I go back to, I don't know if you've heard Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
Every child, every person has basic needs that need to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
And in order for parents to be able to fulfill those needs of their child, there are certain things that they have to do, such as working long hours. We have to be able to empathize with that and be able to, unfortunately, the way that it is fill some of the gaps. So we have to be able to empathize with that and fill some of the gaps. I guess in that, though, it can then be abused by parents, where we're almost looked at as glorified babysitters, and
100%,
you don't have to do
100%.
anything because the school will do it and will take care of it. So it's a bit of a catch-22 because we do need to empathize, but then that also means that parents can't now take the mick and expect us to do everything. So that's my thoughts on it, my take.
For me, I've just been there's just been a few. Do you know what? So your question, being should the school empathize a bit more with a parent because of kind of socio-cultural needs? I think I kind of in my head straight away I went kind of a bit far, and I thought research shows how the education system in itself was built upon the middle class system.
Okay.
And what that really means then is now, something Hellwood 2004 in his study, linguistic codes. One of the things he mentioned in his study was how the middle class system is based on elaborated codes, meaning that information that the middle class system kind of divulges, so within your home, culture, etc., is much more accessible. And where the system was built upon the middle class system, it means that students of a certain class, of a certain background, and even their parents as an extension, when they go into the school system, it's lifelike, it's replicated, it's as you said, based on kind of society, it's replicated. So now consider students who are from a very different background, where there's something now called restricted linguistic code. So for those students, the information is not accessible, it's not understandable. They need to take much more time. The teachers need to take much more time to really break down those codes for the students to be able to not just access and understand, but now utilize that information. So for me, my mind went to, okay, the structural system of education in itself is biased. Is biased. And there is definitely a case here. So, for teachers, because again, as teachers, you're agents of the school system.
Yeah.
But even as agents, you have level of agency where you can have your own free thought. And again, because of where you've come from, your backgrounds, you enact your teaching profession in a certain way. So though there are kind of laws or whatever, guidelines which you follow, you have a freedom to express that based on your lived experience.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair kind of case. But now when you look at, I think I'm looking at now the system of education, I think there's a case there for that to be really looked into. If we're looking at how now effective a parent is in actually engaging with the system, what this simply means is actually for a family from maybe an African country or whatever type of country you're from, who is foreign to the social landscape of Britain, if we're contextualizing it, there's already barriers there to them engaging with the material, engaging with the learning, engaging with the language, actually. I forgot the study, it was 2 years ago, I'm just going to paraphrase. An example was that a maybe white student would maybe speak 200,000 words a day, whereas a black student, racially black student, would speak 1,000 words a day. And even in there structurally, we see how difficult the experiences are for not just students but parents to access and engage with education, depending on where you're from. So I think yes, there's definitely some empathy there from you guys as teachers and agents of the system. But then now the system in itself, you can give all the empathy,
100%.
but nothing is going to change until the system is now looked at. And for that to be one thing we do in Kingston where I work is something called an inclusive curriculum. So now we're looking at how do we make the curriculum and systematically reflect the students and the demographic of this institution. I'm not sure if they're doing that in secondary and primary, but again we have a lot of talk right now around decolonizing the curriculum. And I think that is a very important conversation, not just for the students but now for the parents to access the arena of education and actually engage in that.
I really like what you said. This whole idea of even parents not even being able to kind of understand the system, especially if they're coming from a different system. And so there was, a study, another study where Stanley and Winers, 1999, suggested that the real responsibility actually lies with teachers drawing parents in to the process, explaiing to them, what it is that they're looking for. Because, when I was doing research on this and I'm actually, I'll say I'm ashamed that I didn't know this happened, but there is something known as a homeschool agreement. Right? Now, when I was like, homeschool agreement, I was like, what's that? So...
Have you never seen it? So, like in a student's planner? And they've got that page, it's either at the front or at the back, and you have to get your
the one I always
parent...
signed by mum's signature.
Well done, you. It's supposed to be a parent that's sign it. But it's supposed to be
I just love what you said.
So it's supposed to be the parent signs the back of it. So that's the homeschool agreement, essentially, in the UK. That's how it works in the UK. So it's in the back of the planner.
I think this is such an awesome thing because, with the homeschool agreement, it should be signed by parents. And sometimes certain schools, certain schools invite the children to even partake in that whole signature. And so what the homeschool agreement essentially just outlines what the school expects and what the school will do, and also what the school wants the parents to do. So that already debunks this whole idea, from what was his name? From Stanley and Winers, the whole that the school needs to bring the parents to the program. That's already done through the agreement. Hear this now. There's 35% of the parents, right? In the study conducted by the Department of Education, 35% said that they've never heard of it.
That's probably because their children were signing it for them. Why?
And this is something you're meant to do before your child starts. So 35% said that they have never heard of that agreement. And only 29% said they know a lot about it. But the discrepancy between is like, okay, this is something that, initiates conversation and it communicates expectation. Your child will be with us for around 8 or so hours. This is what we're going to do, but we want you to also do this. And that could be in a sense of you coming to parents' evening. That could be in a sense of, you having regular check-ins and so on and so on. But the fact that 35% of parents didn't even know about something that is so critical, it's very much concerning. And so, it's kind of created this whole idea of the fact that there isn't that much communication taking place. And so if I was to ask you, we already know, what are some of the positives of teacher and parent relationships. But if I was to ask you, what's one thing you'd say is a positive of having that strong relationship? Why is it needed, to have that relationship that facilitates the child's development?
I think it's a level of, I don't know if it's a strange word to say, but I think it's a level of trust. Because essentially, if you have that positive parent-teacher relationship, you know that what you subscribe to as a parent in terms of what you want your child to learn, you know that the teacher's going to do the same. So you know that even though you can't see what's happening, or you may not be or you may not even fully understand the process of school and the structure of school and how it works, you are confident that the teacher does, and the teacher is going to trust or is going to adhere to that which you want to be done. So I think it's that building of trust, because then it allows you, like I said, to work together. There's that collaboration where you don't have to necessarily micromanage as such. It means that you are confident that the teacher's going to do what it is that you ascribe to. And even you as a teacher, it gives you that confidence to say, okay, because of how I am and because of how I teach and because of what the school is doing, and you agree to what the school is doing, I can do my job effectively, because I'm not worrying about what you may think of this, or you may not agree to this, or you may not like that. I'm not worrying about all of that. And that's why I say in my NQT year, I did not want to be calling parents because their child had done X, Y, and Z, because I had already had it in my head that there's not a good relationship with parents and teachers. That was already in my head from just coming into teaching and my own experiences of like parent-teacher relationships. Wow. So it allows that trust, so that I know I can do my job effectively, because you trust that I'm going to do my job well. So I think that's an important thing, because then we're all on the same page. Yeah, and I'm not fighting you about your child. Like we don't need to fight about this. Like we're all on the same page. So
can I just add as well? I think it's the consistency. I guess I can speak for both young children and children in secondary school, because I think that children need consistency to thrive in a healthy environment, both at school and both in their home life. And I think that when you have that consistency with the child, and it's like, if a child does something in the classroom, not that you can threaten them, but you might say, you may have had an agreement with the parent saying that, if the child does this, I'm going to take away their Fortnite or their Roblox, whatever it is. And so you can then, use that to say to the child, I've already agreed with mummy, if you do this, then this is what is going to happen.
There's more
and it's like you both agree. It's not 100%. Like, I don't know, Katie did something one day and then Katie's mum's like, why? Like coming in and almost, attack you as a teacher. But then when you have that agreement with the parent, then it just makes your life easier as a teacher.
The fact that both of you said consistency and also communication, I'll say another benefit of it, is this whole idea of collaboration. Having it's actually called the 3 C's to partnership.
Teach us today.
And I have to give a shout out to Dr. Susan Sheridan, who works with the Early Learning Network, and this whole idea of they were trying to figure out, why many children, especially from disadvantaged backgrounds and low economical households, experience academic and social difficulties. And it's this whole idea that there needs to be certain enforcement to actually encourage that partnership. So Monica, you said communication, excellent, and consistency. And then collaboration is the last thing. It focuses on positive strategies to help the child achieve the best of their potential. And it kind of just brings it back into the whole idea, that this is all about the child. This is all about the child. And so, if I was to kind of just summate it into this whole idea of this water cooler wisdom that we want, educators and parents and even students, if you're listening to this, to kind of take from this, is this whole idea that when it comes to a child's learning, there needs to be a united front. There has to be a united front, purely because the child learns in the school, but the child is actually educated in life itself, right? And that education and that learning can also take place on the child's journey to school and journey from school and what the child sees in the home. And so if we all kind of come together, it's this whole idea, we build that rapport. And the key thing here as well, which we touched upon, is the fact of compassion. Parents, we understand it's hard.
It is hard.
It's hard, especially if you're a young mom or a young dad or a single parent and so on, and you have, multiple kids, and the demand of that to provide for them. I think that, I would love to see, right, a few teachers and a few parents come to a table together. And actually let's just talk about it, because Mamus, you said something so interesting. You came into the profession knowing that there's already that strenuous relationship between a parent and a teacher.
And I think it's just because I guess I experienced it it was to work in my favour, not necessarily for the school, but it was interesting. Like I said, I was lazy. We'll get into that in possibly another podcast. But it took because my dad was aware as to who I was in terms of me as a student and my identity as a student. He went into the school. So there was plenty of things that they were saying, oh, your student's not going to do higher. Your daughter, we don't really recommend her to do higher. So there was this conversation that was going on. I'm oblivious to the whole thing. I'm just sitting there thinking, whatever. But it took my dad to go in and say, no, keep her on higher, keep her with this. And so the reason why I say that there was a fight is because I'd seen that. I'd experienced that in myself. The teacher was saying one thing, my dad was saying another thing, and that was causing conflict between the two. So as much as it was a positive thing, it was about, my potential, as much as it was a positive thing, it was still a fight between the two, rather than them being on the same page, because they both knew who I was as a student and they knew who I was as a person. There was a debate concerning it. I just think, that's how I thought, okay, I'm already going to have some struggles with a couple of parents. So.
Okay, cool. So I think the last thing I just want to say is this whole idea that it's so important to eradicate this them and us mentality. Them, I think some parents do feel like it's this them and us kind of thing. Like, I'm not so skilled with the curriculum and so on and so forth. And parents may say, man, your kid's it's grinding me, but it's like having a positive and a co-parenting, and a collaborative relationship, it removes this them and us. And I would want to end on that. So I think, if we were to kind of take anything from this, is that it's so important to come together for the child's sake and the child's holistic development. And that concludes my water cooler wisdom for this lesson. Listeners, I hope you have enjoyed today's episode. And remember, the conversation doesn't have to stop here. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram and also YouTube at Limits Podcast, and use the hashtag Staffroom Chronicles and hashtag EdXSoc, and we'll continue this conversation. We look forward to seeing you. I'm Johnoi,
Zion,
Mamus,
and Monica.
And we are Let's Meet in the Staff Room. Woo! Woo!